Do not watch this alone. What you're about to hear was never meant to be documented. Some of the names were removed from official records. Some of the reports were sealed by authorities, who refused to comment. We've pieced together what we can from whispers, archived fragments, and the accounts of those too afraid to speak publicly. There is a trail that does not appear on any map. You won't find it on Google Earth, and park rangers will tell you it doesn't exist. It's a phantom path, living only in local warnings and fireside stories told to scare outsiders away. It's not because of dangerous animals. It's not because the terrain is treacherous. It's because the few people who go in. Before this vast expanse of wilderness was designated a protected national forest, it was simply avoided. Old logging crews from the early 20th century abandoned entire sites overnight, leaving behind expensive machinery to rust in the elements. Surveyors, tasked with mapping the region for development, would report their work as finished, despite entire sections being left blank. One entry from a surveyor in 1928 reads, "The silence here is not empty, it is heavy, it presses in." Those journals were archived, catalogued, and then, mysteriously, removed from public access. Our story centers on one solo hiker who, in the late autumn of 2017, dismissed the local legends as folklore. He was experienced, well-equipped, and arrogant. He believed there was no place nature could put him that he couldn't handle. Ignoring the stern warnings from a shopkeeper in the nearest town, he crossed into the restricted zone just as the sun began its descent, casting long, distorted shadows through the ancient trees. Almost immediately, his cell phone lost its signal. Not just a weak bar or two, it went completely dead, as if the battery had been pulled. The trail markers, so clear and consistent just moments before, vanished. The wind, which had been rustling the autumn leaves, died completely. The air became still and cold. Ahead of him, blocking the path, was a massive fallen tree. It was ancient, covered in moss, and looked like it had been there for a century. But its placement felt deliberate. Locals would later say that this particular tree appears and disappears. It's a gatekeeper, a final warning. He was a determined man, so he clambered over the huge trunk. On the other side, the atmosphere changed again. The world seemed muted, like he was looking at it through a pane of old glass. And that's when he saw him. Standing about 50 feet down the path was a man. He was middle-aged, dressed in simple, worn work clothes. He stood perfectly motionless, holding a woodsman's axe. The axe wasn't held in a threatening way. It was resting casually against his leg, its polished head glinting in the fading light. The man smiled. It wasn't a warm or welcoming smile. It was thin, knowing, and utterly devoid of emotion. The sound of the impact was dull, absorbed by the oppressive silence. A deep gash appeared in the log. He swung it a second time. The wood splintered, he continued, his movements calm and methodical, until the section of the tree the hiker had used to cross was completely destroyed, leaving a jagged, impassable break. The axeman stopped. He turned back to the hiker. "I know these woods better than you," he said. His voice was calm, conversational, but it carried an unnerving certainty. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement of fact. In that instant, the forest went completely silent. The low hum of insects, the distant call of a bird, everything ceased. It was a profound, unnatural quiet that made the hiker's own heartbeat sound like a drum. Then, the sound started. Footsteps, moving in a wide circle around him in the underbrush. They weren't running. They were walking at a steady, unhurried pace. Branches snapped in a strange, deliberate rhythm. First on his left, then behind him, then to his right. Whispers followed. They were too close to pinpoint a source, seeming to come from all directions at once, slithering through the air just at the edge of hearing. The Axeman watched, his cold smile never faltering. Then he simply stepped aside, melting into the shadows of the trees, as if his role in this strange play was finished. His job was to close the door. What came next was not his concern. Panic finally shattered the hiker's disbelief. He ran. He abandoned the non-existent path and plunged deeper into the woods, his only guide, a desperate instinct to get away. The shadows stretched and twisted into unnatural, elongated shapes that seemed to writhe in his peripheral vision. At one point, he tripped on an exposed root, falling hard onto the damp earth. As he pushed himself up, his hand landed next to a set of prints in the dirt. Handprints, fresh, and there were too many of them, overlapping in a chaotic cluster. It was as if a crowd had been standing there, waiting. As true darkness settled, enveloping the woods in a near-total blackness, they appeared. From the deep shadows, a full pack of wolves emerged. They moved with a predatory grace, surrounding him, cutting off any hope of escape. Their teeth were bared in silent snarls, their eyes fixing on him with a primal, hungry intelligence. He was trapped. He knew this was the end. But then, something impossible happened. The lead wolf, poised to leap, suddenly froze. A low whimper escaped its throat. The entire pack went rigid, their aggression replaced by pure, unadulterated fear. Then, as one, they turned and fled, crashing through the undergrowth in absolute terror. They weren't just retreating. They were running for their lives. Every sound in the forest stopped again. The air grew heavy, pressurized, making it hard to breathe. The temperature plummeted. A palpable sense of dread descended, a feeling of an ancient and overwhelming presence. Something had arrived, something that terrified the wolves. The hiker scrambled to his feet and ran blindly. He didn't know where he was going, only that he had to move. He stumbled through the darkness until he came to another fallen tree, this one spanning a deep, black gorge. He couldn't see the bottom. Without a second thought, he scrambled onto the log and crossed, refusing to look down into the abyss. The moment his feet touched the solid ground on the other side, the world returned to normal. Instantly, a gust of wind moved through the trees. He could hear birds, crickets, the familiar sounds of a living forest. He looked back. The log he had just crossed was gone. The gorge was gone. Behind him was just an impenetrable wall of dense woods. When reporters later asked, local officials and residents denied the trail's existence, dismissing it all as a campfire story. But in that small town, they still locked their doors tight at night. And people, especially outsiders, still vanish near the edge of that protected forest zone. Thank you for joining us. Subscribe for more tales from the places that shouldn't exist, and the stories that were never meant to be told. If you've ever felt that pull, that little whisper that dares you to step off the marked trail, then this story already knows you. It's been waiting, because some forests don't just grow, they watch. And the one we're talking about tonight, it collects. It started, subtly. A hiker gone too long, a hunter not returning by sundown. Small town tragedies, easily explained away. But then the patterns emerged. In the years that followed, disappearances around this particular stretch of wilderness began to escalate. It wasn't just experienced woodsmen anymore. It was anyone who ventured too close. Hikers, campers, even teenagers looking for a thrill. The strangest part wasn't just the number of people vanishing, but the state of those who came back. Some were found days, even weeks later, sitting perfectly upright at the edge of the woods. They were physically unharmed, not a scratch on them, but their eyes, they were vacant. When asked where they had been, they couldn't explain. They'd just say they were away. The memory was a blank slate, a stolen piece of their lives. Others, of course, were never found at all. They were simply erased. Let me tell you about a specific incident, one that was kept quiet for a long time. A group of 4 college students decided to camp near the officially restricted zone. They were young, adventurous, and didn't believe the local legends. The first night, they were unnerved by sounds just beyond their campfire's light, laughter. But it wasn't human. It was high-pitched, almost like a recording played too fast, and it seemed to come from everywhere at once. The second night, it was closer. They huddled in their tents, listening as something heavy circled their small campsite. On the third night, the real terror began. One of the campers woke to the sound of fabric tearing. A long, clean slice had been cut into the side of his friend's tent from the outside. The sleeping bag was empty. His friend was gone. There were no signs of a struggle, no footprints leading away from the tent, not in the soft dirt. The only tracks lead deeper into the forest, as if his friend had simply gotten up and walked calmly into the darkness. He never came back. The few survivors who have been coherent enough to speak all describe the same place. A clearing. It's a place that defies nature, a perfect circle in the dense woods where nothing grows. The ground is barren and flat, almost like packed asphalt. The trees that ring the clearing don't grow straight up. They bend inward, their branches reaching toward the center, as if in supplication. Strange, unfamiliar symbols are carved deep into the bark, glowing with a faint, sickly light even in the daytime. And on the ground, bones, not scattered by predators, but carefully arranged in geometric patterns. Human bones, animal bones, all mixed together. Alongside them, metal objects, belt buckles, pocket knives, even parts of old cameras are partially melted and fused into the soil itself. But the most disturbing feature is what hangs above it all. A cloud of thick, black smoke. It just hovers there, motionless, about 20 feet off the ground. It doesn't drift with the wind. It doesn't rise. It just waits. Anyone who stumbles into this clearing experiences an immediate and profound effect. The first is lost time. People report entering the clearing at noon and suddenly finding themselves standing in the same spot as the sun sets. Hours gone in a blink. For some, it's days. They emerge from the forest with no memory of the intervening time, only a deep, gnawing sense of dread. The psychological toll is even worse. Those who return often feel emotionally hollowed out, as if a part of their soul was scraped away. Many develop severe sleep paralysis, waking up unable to move, feeling a heavy presence in the room with them. And then there are the whispers. They report hearing soft, indistinct voices in their own homes, calling their names, calling them back to the woods. It's a lure they can't resist. A frightening number of these survivors, after weeks or months of torment, have been known to simply walk out of their houses one day and return to the forest willingly. None of them ever return a second time. The few eyewitness accounts that have been pieced together describe figures in the woods. They are almost always the same. A tall, thin man who stands perfectly still and never, ever blinks. And a woman, seen at a distance, standing motionless between 2 trees, her posture unnaturally rigid. They don't chase. They don't run. They just wait. They appear at the edge of your vision, and the moment you notice them, the moment you truly see them, they're closer. Then closer again, until they are the last thing you see. There's an unreleased recording, recovered from a camera found near the restricted zone. The video was corrupted, but the audio survived. On the tape, you can hear the frantic, panicked breathing of the person holding the camera. You can hear twigs snapping under their feet as they run. But underneath that, there's another sound. A slow, steady breathing that doesn't belong to the operator. And then, a voice. It's calm, clear, and terrifyingly close. It repeats one phrase, over and over. You crossed when you were chosen. The federal agency that recovered the camera sealed that recording. It has never been made public. You need to understand something critical about this place. The forest doesn't kill everyone who enters. It's more deliberate than that. It selects. It chooses. If you wander into its domain and are allowed to leave, it's not because you were lucky. It's because you were chosen for a different purpose. You were never meant to forget what you saw. You were meant to be a beacon, a memory carrier, and the forest will remember you. Thanks for joining us. Subscribe to Tales of the Dark, where every story we tell plants the seed of a new nightmare. See you next time.